Well, he rose to the top of the Catholic Church in the United States only for his career to end in disgrace. Word this evening, Theodore McCarrick has died. He was defrocked after it was found that he'd been responsible for repeated cases of sexual assault. News 12 senior investigative reporter Walt Kane joining us right now. Walt.
Well, Eric, Theodore McCarrick was one of America's most prominent religious figures, Cardinal of Washington, D.C. In fact, some thought he might become the first American Pope. But for more than 2 decades, McCarrick had been harboring a secret. He was repeatedly accused of sexually abusing young men and boys, and in something of a perverse twist, he insisted that his victims call him Uncle Ted. The Vatican was warned about McCarrick's conduct several times, but took no action until a series of lawsuits were filed in 2018. After the case went public, the church defrocked McCarrick. He spent the rest of his life living at church expense at a home for retired priests, but he was never convicted of a crime. In 2023, a judge ruled that because he was suffering from dementia, he could not be tried for the sexual assault of James Grine, which had happened several decades prior. Theodore McCarrick is dead at the age of 94.
Walt, I'm stuck on something that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering also. How is it that given all that happened, he was defrocked, he still wound up living on the church's dime, basically?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately he didn't have assets of his own,
right.
And they continued to put him up there. It was at a facility in the Midwest.
So, listen, obviously his death doesn't have any bearing on the continuing lawsuits against the church. Where do they stand right now?
Well, in 2018, after the statute of limitations was expanded, allowing some of these plaintiffs to file lawsuits about incidents that had happened in their childhood, there were dozens of lawsuits filed against McCarrick. They are all working their way through the system. McCarrick may not have been able to face criminal charges, but in this case, the Vatican is also on the receiving end of these civil lawsuits. And
something else that you and the Kane in Your Corner team have been looking into for some time now has to do with the Attorney General's investigation into clergy abuse. Can you bring us up to speed on where that is?
Sure. In 2018, after the McCarrick case went public, the New Jersey Attorney General announced a grand jury investigation into the extent of clergy abuse in the state. It went basically nowhere, and we found out recently why. The Archdiocese of Camden had sued to block it. It was all playing out behind closed doors, sealed records. But the Supreme Court will hear the case this month, and will decide if that grand jury investigation can go forward.
All right, Walt Kane, you're going to have a full story on the death of Theodore McCarrick.
Tonight at 8.
Tonight at 8. All right, thanks a lot, Walt.